A sparrow saved from a storm, a promise of repayment no one believed. But when kindness seemed forgotten, it returned in the most unexpected way. This is the tale of the farmer and the sparrow's debt, where a single act of mercy yields a harvest of wonder. In a small countryside village surrounded by golden fields, there lived a farmer named Haru. He worked from dawn till dusk, his hands rough, but his heart kind. One evening, as he prepared his tools, a sudden storm swept through the valley. Thunder rolled, rain poured, and the wind howled across the crops. When the storm calmed, Haru went to check his fields and found a tiny sparrow trembling in the mud, one wing bent and soaked. "Poor little thing," he murmured, gently scooping it up and taking it home. He dried its feathers by the fire, fed it a few grains, and placed it in a small wicker basket lined with straw. For 3 days the sparrow rested. On the 4th, it chirped again, lively, whole, and ready to fly. Before it left, it perched on Haru's window and chirped 3 clear notes, as if to say, "Thank you." Haru smiled and whispered, "Go on then, little one." He thought nothing more of it. But the sparrow hadn't forgotten. Weeks passed. The harvest season came, and the weather turned cruel again. Long days without rain. Haru's crops began to wilt, and his barns stood nearly empty. Neighbors whispered that luck had left him. One morning, as Haru sat outside worrying over his fields, he saw the same sparrow flutter down and land on his shoulder. In its beak was a small grain, round, golden, and brighter than any he'd ever seen. It dropped it into his hand and chirped twice before flying off. Puzzled, Haru planted the grain in a pot near his door. The next morning, to his amazement, a tall stalk had grown, heavy with seeds shimmering like sunlight. He harvested a few and planted them across his field. Within days, the entire farm was alive with golden ears of grain that shimmered even under cloudy skies. Word spread, and people came from other villages to see this miracle field. Haru was humble about it, saying only, "Perhaps it was a debt repaid." By winter, Haru's barns overflowed. He shared his bounty with his neighbors, especially those who had mocked his faith. When asked how he'd found such fortune, he only smiled and said, "Kindness has a way of finding its way back home." One evening, as he watched the sunset over the golden fields, the sparrow returned once more, this time with a small twig in its beak. It placed it on his doorstep, chirped softly, and flew into the horizon. Haru picked up the twig and noticed it was shaped like a heart. He placed it above his doorway as a reminder. Kindness, once given, never dies. It only changes form. From that day on, every spring, sparrows nested near his fields, singing the same 3 clear notes, as if telling the world that debts of kindness are never forgotten. And so, from a single act of compassion, came a harvest of blessings. The farmer and the sparrow's debt reminds us, kindness is never wasted. It waits, it grows, and one day it comes back in ways we cannot imagine. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tale Ember, where every story sparks a little more light.